Sound good? Sound good?
Yeah. Say some stuff to me.
Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow. And everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go.
Splendid. Well, that's sounding pretty clear. I'm hoping that the recording is going to be completely fine. We'll try it and we'll see how we go, because obviously we're on, all of us are on limited time. All of us, all the time.
quite literally.
Fuck.
It will be fine. It'll be good.
I am very pleased to be here on My Magical Thing with the awesome and fabulous Greg Humphries, one of my oldest and dearest friends, who I know as many things: writer, magician, artist, ayahuasquero, woodsman, incredibly skilled individual. You know, you need your coppice sorted out. This is the man that you want. And he's going to be able to do some spooky magic stuff with the trees and make some beautiful art out of the found twigs he finds on the ground. This is the Renaissance man and one of my dearest and most dearly loved friends. Greg, it's great to have you here, man.
Oh man, thank you so much. It's really lovely to be here into this magical thing, hall of fame that you've managed to construct for yourself and for everybody else who's out there sort of listening and watching this. It's a brilliant thing. It is really, you know, you've got a lot of people on there that I respect. So that's a really lovely thing to sort of like be involved with. Thank you very much. It's really good.
You're welcome. Thank you for your contribution. Greg Humphries, may we see your magical thing, please? One of the many.
In fact, you can see it. It's sort of here.
Oh, yes, it's sort of coming out of the side of your head in a very good way.
That's just there. But what I need to do before I show you, I need to tell you the story behind it. Because for me, magical things are things that should arise from magical operations, as well as being, you know, yes, they can also be tools, wands or whatever, or rune sets or whatever it is to actually perform magic. But actually, for me, they've got to arise out of a magical experience. And so the object arises from the experience, and that is magic. And so they become magical objects. So the story goes, once upon a time, myself and my wife were in Mexico, and we were working with the peyote shaman, who are the Wyrd people, which is like a nicer way of saying huicholes. Like huicholes is like, if you translate it, it means donkey. So yeah, not nice. Spanish thing to talk about the indigenous people of Mexico. Not good. So we're Wyrd people, and they are the guys from central Mexico. So they wear like white with like embroidered stuff and hats with sort of like, you know, feathers and all that sort of stuff in them. And they literally wear that all the time, like on the bus, down the shops, in a ceremony, makes no difference. It's still the same thing. And because one of the reasons that is that because they have this completely creationist worldview. Like when the Spanish arrived in sort of really the late 15th century, they ran away to the mountains, and then they only came out, they were uncontacted for all that time. They only came out in like the 1960s, 70s. So their whole culture is one of, you know, the sun comes up in the morning and then it's chased by the moon and all this sort of stuff. So they really are just creation worldview people. So to take peyote with them is really interesting, because you basically, a lot of the peyote ceremonies that happen, even like Native American tradition, yeah, they arise from the huicholes. They arise from the Wyrd people. So the Wyrd people are like the center from which all this sort of peyote stuff works and spread throughout the sort of American continent. So they're the source, as far as I'm concerned. They're the source. So we're with them, Acapulco, Pacific coast of Mexico, and we're just north in a place called Pier de la Cuesta. So you've got like the Pacific Ocean let's do that way, that side. Then you've got a strip of land 200 meters wide, and then a massive lagoon on the other side. Okay. And so we get the message from them. They go, okay, yeah, we're going to be in this place called Tatooine. Tatooine? That's like Star Wars or something. Ah, okay. So we sort of turn up at this place, not knowing what to expect. And we turn up, and it's a bit like, imagine Mexicans for a Sunday afternoon take their kids to this sort of place. And so they've got the ocean on one side, so they've got a sand dune in the ocean, but there's like a swimming pool with some like sort of like palm covered cabanas that people can go to a little kiosk and get food and all this sort of stuff. There's a football pitch on one side. There's chain link fences, but because it's Mexico, yeah, it's not like, you know, it's not like Martha's Vineyard or somewhere. It's like, it's Mexico. So there's chain link fences. There's a building site on one side, and then the other side is sort of like got loads of sort of scrub land and dogs running around in it and all that sort of stuff on the other side. So picture the scene. So we turn up at the place. I mean, we get past the whole, there's two pickup, when we first drive, there's two pickup trucks full of armed police, right? And so you sort of think, okay, let's just take things really calmly. We're just turning up at this place. We're just turning up. We're just going to spend an afternoon by the pool and all this sort of stuff. So anyway, so get through the armed guards, get to this place, settle down for the afternoon, have a swim in the pool and all that sort of stuff, explore the beach. And then the Wyrd people arrive with their sort of group of 20-something Mexicans, rich Mexican guys who are basically there looking after everything. Oh, okay, ceremony's going to start. This is brilliant. So the ceremony doesn't start till the night time. And these guys, so they're drinking beer, having food like you do before a sort of big psychedelic ceremony. You know, eggs, tortillas, all that sort of stuff. So they're eating loads of food, having beers.
Smoking loads of cigarettes.
Yeah, really. Beers, you know, all this sort of stuff. And we're there, no, we're just going to drink water. You know, it's like we've got this whole sort of thing going on. And so we're there. So we're hanging out with these guys, having a chat with them and all this sort of stuff. And then the sort of two Wyrd guys who were sort of going to lead the ceremony, they go off and they say, right, we're going to decide where we're going to have our ceremony. So I think, oh, brilliant. It's the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. It's like a sand dune. The Pacific Ocean spread out in front of you. Amazing, brilliant, beautiful it would be, wouldn't it? That's just like idyllic. It's like something living the dream. But so they come back and they say, we go, great, where are we going to have the ceremony? And they go, just there. And they point down to the 6-yard box of the football pitch, like the penalty spot, right? We go, what? We're going to have a fire on the football pitch. So yeah, that's where we're going to have it. The spirits have told us that's where we've got to have that's where we're going to have the ceremony. So it's like, okay, so all the young Mexican guys get together, not like, you know, when I've participated in ceremonies and I've done the fire for sort of different peyote shaman and stuff, is that, you know, I cut the wood, like it takes a year. I cut the wood, dry it out, long lengths, perfectly straight, make the arrow fire, you know, do all this sort of stuff with the logs and all this. No, not in this stuff. They go to the building site, they drag out loads of old pallets and like bits of timber with wire sticking out and stuff, chuck it all on the penalty spot, set light to it. That's the fire. Ceremony begins. Let's get going. They give us this massive peyote button. I'm not kidding. It was like this because we're like guests of honor. We're from England, yeah. So they give me and Fran this fresh, massive peyote button like this for us to just cut in half and just eat, like big thing. So anyway, so we have this ceremony, and the ceremony starts. There's this couple there from obviously urban Mexicans, yeah. So they've never been to a ceremony before, and they've got the ashes of their daughter in a pot, okay, and their daughter died about a year previously, and they've not known what to do with these ashes or how to deal with them. So they spoke to a friend the day on that day, and they said, what do? We don't know what to do. It's the anniversary of her death. We want to do something. We want to clear this. We want to clear it for ourselves so that we can move on, you know, in some sort of way. So their friend said, look, go to this place, go and talk to the Wyrd people. They'll know what to do. They'll help you out. So they're there with the ashes. There's probably 6, 10 other people. Yeah, the two guys who are Wyrd people, they've got like these instruments. So they've got like a little guitar, little like charanga guitar, and a little violin that they've made. And they're sort of making music, and we're all singing songs, and we've got the fire going and stuff. And then the woman, the woman who's got the ashes of her daughter, she starts to say a prayer for her daughter, right? And I kid you not, as she was saying the prayer, I looked out over the Pacific because I was like looking out, and I can see approaching is like a proper tropical storm with like pink lightning and like thunder. And as she's saying her prayer, this thing comes over the top of us and it starts to rain. And I mean, like, only that it can rain in the tropics. It's like buckets of water just like coming down. There's no shelter. We're not like under a cabana. We're on a fucking football pitch, right? So there's like nothing. So it's raining and raining. And because it's raining, these two people who've got the ashes of their daughter, they run off and go and sit under the cabanas, right? Because it's raining. And they're urban Mexicans, so it's raining. We're all sat out there in the rain on the football pitch, right? Everything's getting soaked. And literally the water is starting to get deeper and deeper and deeper in this football pitch. And the Wyrd guys go to one of the young Mexican guys, they go, look, you've got to go and tell those people to come back and finish their prayer, because it ain't going to stop raining until they finish their prayer. Right, so they go and tell them, and these Mexican people go, we're not going out there, you're crazy, it's raining, we're not going out in the rain. So it's like, honestly, I'm not kidding, it rained the whole night. Yeah, it rained the whole night, and these people stayed under the cabanas the whole night until the morning, right? And honestly, the fire was getting smaller. It was gradually in a pool of water, getting smaller and smaller. And we were there singing songs, trying to get this fire going all night. It's like, it's chucking it. We're just soaked. Sun starts to come up, and the guys go and say, look, you have to come. We're going to finish the ceremony. You've got to come, and you've got to finish your prayer. So anyway, I kid you not, the Mexican people came back, they finished their prayer, and it stopped raining straight away. Okay, so it's like, that's the sort of evening. They eventually got the ashes, and they were going to throw the ashes into the fire. And the Wyrd guys go, no, don't do that. Don't do that. If you do that, you don't know what's going to come out. So don't throw them in the fire. What we'll do is in the morning, once we'll close the ceremony, we'll take the ashes, we'll take them to the sea with flowers, with candles, with prayers, with tobacco, with copal, and we'll put them in the sea. And so this whole thing went on. Yeah. So in the middle of all this, I have this vision of a bow, a magical bow, like an archer's bow, a bow and arrows. Yeah. In fact, that, right. Have this vision of this. And so I talked to the Wyrd people in the morning and said, oh, I had this vision of this bow, you know, because they like talking about their visions and stuff in the morning. I had this vision of this bow. And they said, oh, I said, and then I said, I saw this ash tree. So a tree that's an ash tree, yeah? Mm-hmm. So I saw this ash tree and then this bow, and it transformed into this bow and all this. And they said, I said, that's really interesting, because these instruments that we play, they said, what we have to do is, before we can play the instruments, we have to have a dream, a vision of the instruments and of the tree in which the instruments are going to come from. And then when we have to find that tree in this world, and then we say prayers, we put tobacco down, we cut down the tree, and we make the instruments. So they said, you've got to find the tree to make the bow. So this had happened like 5, 6, 7 years ago. So it took me 3 years to find the tree. And then I found the ash tree that I'd seen. I put some tobacco down, I said prayers, I cut down the tree. And to coppice it, it was in a coppice that we were doing. So it regrows, so it doesn't die, it regrows. Cut down the tree and made the bow. Do you want to see it?
Yes, please. I'd very much like to see the bow. That's amazing.
Okay. So it's made of ash. The reason I think one of the reasons that it's made of ash is that it's Yggdrasil is an ash tree. So in the Norse tradition, Yggdrasil is the world tree. So it's the tree that connects all three of the worlds. So, and at its base is the well of Mimir, in which Odin sacrificed his eye to get the knowledge of the runes. And so I made this, sort of doing this as I can show you. Wow, I've not had this out for quite a long time. It's nice to have it out, Jules. So this is the bow. Okay, so the ash tree is here. And then what I did was I've sort of marked it with natural pigments and done this design on it. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that?
Yeah.
So this design on it, and And then I've gold leafed it. So there's bits that are gold leaf on there. So this is the bow. But then obviously you can't just do the bow. So then there's a whole set. Then I had to make a set of arrows. So then I had to get the hazel and cut the hazel for the arrows and put designs on them. Then the quiver for the arrows, then the bow bag, and then the stand. And the stand has actually got, so the bow stand that you can see here has actually got the painted design of the story of how it came about on it. So I've carved it and then painted all over it the story of me and Fran being in Mexico on the football pitch with the Wyrd. And so this whole thing is that. Now, the thing is, the interesting thing with it is when I got the bow is that the voice said, this bow's not for you. This bow is for the herald of the new eon. Now, whatever that means, I don't know what that means, but essentially that's what it said. And so I've made this thing. It took a long time to make. It took about a year because I had to do it all from scratch, get the leather, get the thing, sew it, make the thread for the sewing thing, make a bowstring, make the feathers, get the feathers for the arrow, all this sort of stuff. It took ages, but I've done it. And now I don't know what to do with it because it's for the herald of the new eon. And I don't think that's me. So if anybody's out there and they think that they're the herald of the new eon, they should get in touch with you, Jules.
Well, mate, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think we've had a little bit of this conversation before, but just in terms of, you know, who it might be for. But going back to the image of the bow itself, like if you've got that, because you've got like Native American style designs on this, which break up the outline, if memory serves.
So this is a typical sort of, this is based on, I mean, it's not complete. I mean, they don't have gold leaf on their bows, but there's an abstract, lots of abstract patterns that you can find that are on Native American bows. And they're like a traditional camouflage, if you like. So they break up this line. So if you're hunting, if you're actually hunting, it acts like a camouflage too. It's a bit like, you know, like the World War One camouflage for war gear, that sort of stuff. Quite geometric, quite abstract sort of stuff. So yeah, so that's it. And then the ends are carved as well. So you've got spirit animals on the end of each thing. Snake.
Very cool.
Okay. You've got owl. You've got frog. You can see that?
Yeah, got it.
Froggy. And then you've got boar. Oh, let me just take the string off. And then boar.
Oh, nice.
So these are based on Celtic designs. So you've got a whole mixture of sort of different traditions that are involved in this bow. But what makes it interesting is that I don't know what it's going to be used for. It's not down to me to decide how it's going to be used. It's not like a wand or something. Do you know what I mean? You can say, oh yes, I'm going to use this to cast spells. Is that actually, I don't really know what it's used for, and I don't really know who it's for. So
we've got a William Blake reference in the gold as well.
There's a William Blake reference in the gold, yeah. So you've got this, like, you know, bring me my bow of burning gold, bring me my arrows of desire.
Can you show us the arrows? Because
arrows, I can definitely. I'd love to show you my arrows.
Do it.
Each arrow is individually designed. So, wow. So we've got a selection of different things. I'll try and get you some good. Oh yeah, I like that one. That's my favorite. Okay, so each arrow. The bow, by the way, is because I make bows. Everybody makes bows, though, don't they?
You make bows.
Yeah, everybody I know makes bows.
Yes.
So the bow is a 50-pound longbow at 28 inches. So for anybody who's into bows, it's a 50-pounder at 28 inches. Okay, so that's about draw length. But then the arrows are spined to work with the bow, which basically means they flex, because the arrows, as they fly through the air, they flex as they go through the air. And so this is spined to work with the bow. So they're a matching set. So there's 12 arrows, and on each one, see if I can hold this up, look. On each one, there's different designs that have been painted. Okay, and the feathers are 2 goose feathers. So there's 2 goose feathers, and a macaw feather. And the macaw feather is blue on one side and yellow on the other. Okay. And then they've been, then I've sewn in the feathers so that they're, you can see they're attached by thread to the actual shaft of the bow. And then the tips I made by some of those, a selection. So there's 3 different tips. There's target tips, there's hunting tips, which is what these are. And then there's armor piercing tips, because everybody needs some armor piercing tips for their bow, for their arrows.
Increasingly these days, it's an important thing to have.
And then here, I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That on each bit of the bow, I've put the grid reference of where the wood was that it was made from, if that makes sense. So it's got, there's a grid reference on the bow. There's a grid reference on the arrows. So if anybody was interested, they could actually visit, or at least Google Map, so the place where the actual wood comes from for the bows. So these are the bows. There's 12 arrows.
And the cases that things are carried in, so the quiver and the bow case, because there's a story behind those as well, if I remember correctly.
There's always a story, Jules. There's a story. There's a story for everything.
Indeed.
So the bow cases. So this is based on the design for this. I'll just hold it up so you can see it. The design for this is a Cherokee design. So I don't know if you can see this. So it's a carrying case, and it's got a strap so that you can carry it. If you're on a horse, you can carry it on your shoulder behind you, and it means you can pull the bow out and the arrows without having to get off the horse. So you can sort of pull the bow out, pull the arrows out, string it, and fire off some arrows if you're hunting on a horse. But it's also, I've got this this stick, so you can actually carry it normally like this, and the bow goes in the bow bag here with this leather. You see this lovely leather here, Jules?
Yes, I do.
Lovely leather here. And then the quiver is made of the same leather. Yeah. But it's also got a cloth insert to protect the feathers. Okay.
And did you buy the leather from a shop, Greg? Is that how it comes?
I don't just go buying stuff from shops, Jules.
No, mate, I know.
Come on, get with the program. It's the 17th century. Come on. So this honey-covered, coloured, beautiful leather that we've got here is from the last oak bark tanned leather place in Devon, and it's actually in Devon, and they still have the same vat. So when they get cow skins in, there's one guy's job to scrape all the cow skins with a metal bar, right? So to sort of get the grain off of the skin and get the fat off it. He's been doing that job for 30 years. That's all he does all day, is do that on bits of cow skin. Then the cow skins, they get tanned, they get put into, and then the tanning process is a natural tanning process. But then to color them, what they do is they put them in oak bark solution. So they get oak bark from Cumbria, ship it down in big lorry loads, and they have like probably half a dozen different big vats that are still the same ones from the 18th century that they still maintain. So they're the only existing still like proper crafty leather tanning place. And so they can put the skins in vats in for different time periods to get different colors. Okay, so you can put me for longer, it gets darker, basically. But it's really good. The company's brilliant because it's sort of like still stuck in the 18th century. Like you can't pay, you have to phone them. You can't just order online. They've got a website. I'm trying to think what they're called now. But anyway, I'll see if we can put a link or put a little thing in there. I can find out a little. But so basically, you can't just order it online. You have to phone them up. You phone them up. You tell them what they want. And when I phoned them up, I said, look, I need something for a 6-foot bow. So I need a skin that's at least 6 feet long because I can't have any seams in it. Because if you have seams in it, as you put the bow in, it gets caught on the seam. And so it just doesn't work. And so it's got to be continuous length for 6 foot. And they went, okay, we'll get back to you. And then put the phone down, right? You should think, heard nothing for 3 weeks, right? I heard nothing for 3 weeks. So I phoned them up and they said, oh yeah, no, I think we've got a skin. we've got a skin, we're just sorting it out for you. Put the phone down, right? It's like another 3 weeks, like phoned them back 3 weeks later. And they said, yeah, it's in the vats. It's in the vats. We're going to do it. Send us a check.
Whoa.
Who does that? Whoa. Who's still got does anybody still have a checkbook? And when was the last time you wrote a check? So I had to scrabble in the drawer, get out an old checkbook. I don't even know it's still valid. Write a check, send it off. Then once you've sent it off, once you receive the money, and then they send you the skins back, right? And the skins come wrapped in wax paper. Each one comes wrapped in wax paper, and they've done it, and they're beautiful. They're just beautiful things. So in terms of honoring animals, I think that's probably about as good as you can get.
And you have to sew this really carefully, because I've seen this object, and I've you know, at several steps removed, kind of gone through some of the journey with this, and I know that on that bow case, it's like a machine has done it, except it has the beautiful tiny little variants that show me that a human has done it. But the piercing,
let me see if I can show it up. I don't know if I'll be able to get close enough to the camera. So what you mean is,
yes, like this.
Do you see that?
Done by
that's the stitches. Whoa. So, and you have to, I had to stitch all the way along the entire bow. And the thing is with this leather is that it's not like deer leather. Like deer skin is really thin, right? It's really flexible. It's really thin. It's lovely, really easy to work. You can just sort of stitch it. This is like 4 millimeters thick, right? The leather is 4 millimeters thick. So when you're squishing it together, you've got 8 millimeters, 6 to 8 millimeters of thickness that you've got to try and push a needle through. It's never going to happen. So I had to learn how to stitch saddle leather. So I had to get saddle making equipment. So I had to invest in like saddle making equipment just to stitch this thing. And it's like, you know, basically each stitches, you get a big long length of linen cord. So I had to make the linen. So you make the linen thread. Okay, so that takes a while. You wax it with beeswax. That takes a while. You then get your needles. You get 2 needles, one on each length. You get a big long length of thread. You get your needles, and you get an awl, which is like, you know, like a wooden bit with a metal spike on it. And you push the awl. So then you've got to get your clamps. So you've got to get saddle makers clamps. You clamp the leather in the clamps like this, really tightly. You get your awl. You push in the awl, and then there's a technique where as you're pulling the awl out, you pull the thread through, and then you get another one and you push the awl in and you get the thread and you're pulling it out each time. So the thread does this throughout each stitch. That's one stitch, right?
How many stitches are there, Greg? How many stitches are there, Greg? Just that, I mean, a lot of them, aren't there?
There's a lot of stitches, Jules. I mean, I can tell you in that much is 10 stitches. 10 stitches, right? And it's 7 foot long.
Yes.
So 1 inch is 10 stitches and it's 7 feet long. You do.
See, people say about, like, you know, when in the olden days where you had to like make your own magic robe. And as a young man, I did make a slightly haphazard, well, more than slightly haphazard magical robe with my rather pathetic tailoring skills. But that, my friend, is a serious piece of work. And then there is also a family history thing in this as well, because there's a wooden stick, isn't there?
So the stick, So this stick, so I come from originally, back in the day, lifetimes ago, but so you see this stick? So this stick here is the bit that holds it all together. So it's drilled through, and I've put the leather thongs to be able to hold everything together. So that's essentially the thing that holds everything together, both physically and, let's say, energetically. And that stick is a pit foreman stick. So I come from Nottinghamshire, North Nottinghamshire originally, Sherwood Forest, in fact.
Oh.
Literally the heart of Sherwood Forest. Hence bow making, I'm sure there's some sort of like romantic genetic thing going on there. But anyway, so that stick is a yard long, and it's a pit foreman stick. And so what they could do is when they were down, and so my that was, you know, that's my great granddad's stick, right? And it's carved, and it's got a little bit of carving on it from when I was about 15 or something. There's really interested, like I did like little carving with a knife on it of like a snake and like my name and all this sort of stuff on it from when I was 15. So I've had this stick a long time. And what they would do is they would use it to measure down, if you're down a mine, down in the darkness, it's difficult to get a tape. You can't use a tape measure. It's much easier to get a yardstick. It's a yardstick, and then sort of like roll it over, so you can measure as you're walking along. You can sort of measure how long a tunnel is, or a shaft, or whatever. So it's a Pitney almond stick. So that's the whole thing that holds the whole thing together. So my family history is basically tied into this object in some way. So yeah, I think it's, I don't know, it's an interesting one, because it's like, because it came out of that vision, is that I don't really know what to do with it. It's really, I honestly don't know quite what to do with the whole thing. It's a really tricky thing. And I think it's what I'm really interested in is I'm really interested in creating objects that have got stories, that the stories can follow on. So the stories follow the objects, and the objects become bigger because of that. So, you know, if somebody wants to have this, take this, use this in some way, and then record the story, does that make sense? Record the story of that. It's going to be an interesting journey. I don't know. There's a whole lots of emotions attached to that for me. So yeah, an interesting thing. I don't know. That's my magic. Jules, that is my magical thing.
Greg Humphries, my dear friend, and I am in awe of your skill and the depth of that. You know, it's like, okay, you can do like a spooky, psychedelic, weirdy sigil. You can, like I said, going to haphazardly sew your own robe or whatever. But the depth of that, and the fact that, you know, you kind of look at it and you go, this is an awesome object. But then the story that leads back into that peyote vision, and perhaps forward into whoever it is who strings and shoots the bow or uses it in whatever way, is truly inspiring and delightful and awesome, as indeed are you, my dear friend.
Oh, that's such a lovely thing to say. Thank you. But I think there's also this thing of, you know, magical objects. It should be invested with that, you know, and, you know, I think they should be invested with some of you. That's the whole thing, you know, is that otherwise you can go down your local, you know, shamanic tat shop and buy a set of runes. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, I can do that. You could do that, but it doesn't mean the same thing. It's not the same, you know, because there's a connection between you and the materials and how this object has come about from nature. Essentially, you know, everything comes from the earth. Everything physical comes from the earth at some point. It might be processed, but it comes from the earth. And it's like gets you right back to that connection with the earth, essentially with matter. And by making is the process through which that happens. That's the connection. The connection is through the making. So yeah, I definitely say people who need to go and make their own stuff. You know, you need to go and get the thread to make your cotton robe that you need to weave it yourself, build a loom, you know, do all that from first principles. It's like first principles. Go to nature, gather the stuff, and then make your thing.
In terms of that, you know, the phrase that you used earlier on, I had to get some linen, and I know that you'd like, you know, this is from first principles. This is from the plant.
Grow the fucker
all the way up. Grow the plant, make the thing, and that depth of practice, my friend, is both awesome and hopefully inspiring for people that get to see that as well, and, you know, want to I don't know, just find out more about your work or that approach, you know, because I know that a lot of your work is about kind of connecting people with exactly those skills, you know, whether it's like learn to carve a spoon, learn to make a mallet, learn to make a shelter, learn to find water, all of that stuff. You know, magic is often thought of as this kind of rarefied, abstract kind of thing. And when it becomes rooted in the material base, the physicality of the world, that's when it is a true deep magic, I suppose I would call it, you know, where it hits all the layers from the visionary peyote thing right to the point where you're pushing the awl through the specially tanned leather it's the whole thing. So Greg, thank you so much, man. That's really, really appreciate it. Thank you for sharing that on there.
It's an absolute pleasure. And yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity to tell the story. It's always good telling stories.
Loads of love, man. I'll see you soon.
Take care. Ciao. Bye.
Bye.